So are you doing things that actually aren't leading to dollars or leading to new clients? And all of these things are things that bottleneck our business.
And up next, we're going to be joined by Kelley Tenny. Kelley, great to see you. Welcome to the summit.
I'm excited to be here.
I'm so glad that you could make it today. We just wrapped up our Gamma workshop. Gamma, of course, shared some of their incredibly powerful resources, which I think is a perfect segue to you, Kelley, founder of Teacher Brilliance and the Woman Who AI Summit, who's got an unbottlenecking presentation today for
Yes.
helping those of us who are maybe stuck in our business and identifying ways that we can unbottleneck ourselves from our business. Kelley, the
Yeah.
stage is yours.
All right. Thank you, Darby. Hello, everybody. Good to see some familiar faces. As Darby mentioned, I am here to talk about the concept of unbottlenecking our business. And I love that you had Gamma on right before this, because when we're talking about just effective ways to harness AI, to get our expertise out there, to get our knowledge out there, to share our wisdom with everybody. There's a lot of tools that we now have in front of us that allow us to do that. And for those of you that know me, I'm the founder of Teacher Brilliance, where that is literally what I do, right? My mission in life is to help experts and entrepreneurs get their wisdom out into the world so they can generate more revenue and so that they can ultimately have more impact on their communities. But we can't completely do that, right? Or we can't do that at its most effective level when we have things inside of our business that are actually preventing us from doing that. And so today I want to talk about something that I think can completely transform businesses and really looking at how we can leverage AI to eliminate the different bottlenecks that actually keep us not only keep us stuck at being able to focus on delivering that value, focus on getting our expertise out into the world, but more importantly, also being stuck at the level of business that we're in, right? Something that I was told by a coach that I worked with for many years is around the link between revenue and the amount of people that you're impacting. And I know that a lot of you on this call are much like me, and that you love what you do so much and you just love helping people so much that you would almost do it for free. In fact, I'd love to see, for those of you that are on, a show of hands, how many of you have actually given some of your very precious expertise away for free? How many of you have done that before? Yeah, I know, Bruce, you're always giving me stuff away for free. So don't listen to this part, Bruce, because I love when you give me free stuff. But we've all been there. We've all been like, I just really love this. I really want to help you. I'm going to give this away for free. And so we very often miss that sign of maybe your business is where it's at because you're giving a lot away for free. And this concept of like, how much more can you give when you're stuck in the realms of your business? So free for friends. Awesome. So one of the things that I had to shift my mindset around to really grasp this concept of unbottlenecking is recognizing that the amount of revenue that all of you make is a direct relationship to the amount of people that you impact. So more money in your business equals the amount of people that you're impacting. And we want to recognize that when we are stuck in the realms of our business, in the weeds of our business, not only are we not generating revenue, but we're also not having the impact on people that we can have. So let's take a look at what this looks like in terms of how do we get away from that, right? How do we unbottleneck our business? And how do we use AI to do that? So I first want to talk about what I call the effort revenue gap. How many of you have ever felt like you're working harder than you ever have before, but your revenue, the money that's coming into your bank account, isn't actually reflecting the time that you feel like you're putting into your business? Anybody ever feel like, man, I'm putting tons of hours in my business. Why am I not seeing those zeros show up in our bank account? And there's a big gap between the amount of effort that we put into our business and the amount of revenue that we're getting out of it. One, We often will try to work harder. Like, how many of you have been at that point in your business where you're just like, I know I'm working really hard. I'm looking at the amount of revenue that's coming into my bank account. I'm not exactly where I'm at yet. So I'm just going to work harder. I'm just going to work longer. I'm just going to get up in an hour earlier. I'm just going to work an hour later. Maybe you're like, I'm going to skip lunch. When I get into that realm, I stop working out. I'm like, maybe I'll just work instead of going on my run or going to the gym. So we've all been in that rut of I'm not really seeing the revenue show up. And so I'm just going to try to put more hours in, which for those of you that have done that, think about what happens, right? When you try to just put more time in, right? What happens to us personally? What happens to our families? What are the things that we sacrifice? The second component is feeling stuck, right? So we get to a point in our business where the revenue doesn't exactly match the effort that we're putting in. So now we're like, I'm putting even more hours. That may feel like an exponential amount of time, but I'm not exponentially seeing the amount of revenue. And so we start to look for solutions. This is where we start to spin out in our business. We start to look for ways to break through that plateau. We start to doubt our offers. How many of you have gotten to a place where you're in this effort revenue gap, where you've started to doubt your own offer? Maybe what I'm offering isn't exactly what I should be selling. Maybe it's me. Maybe they're not seeing the value. Maybe I should lower the price. Maybe I should launch something else. And we start looking for solutions inside of our business. But really, that isn't always what the actual solution is. And oftentimes it's because we're actually bottlenecking or clogging, if you will, our own business. So most of you probably have a bottleneck in your business that is making you feel the pain points of some of the components on the previous slide, meaning you're working really hard, your revenue isn't where it's at, and you're starting to look for solutions that are outside of your business. Do I need another offer? Do I need to do more speaking? Do I need to attract a different client? Do I need to maybe bring on a team or find somebody else to partner with, right? And what we tend to not look at is what is going on inside, right? What's going on inside of our business. And it doesn't really matter the size of your business, right? Like seeing some of familiar faces on here. I know some of you are solopreneurs. You're running your own businesses. I know some of you are entrepreneurs, but maybe you have a VA or you have some kind of assistant that's helping you with some of the things. And then I know others of you are building teams. You're looking to bring people on that can help you. Regardless of the size of your business, we all have some common business bottlenecks. And I want you to think about which ones of these sound familiar to you. One, a lot of us have trouble with lead generation and qualification. Okay. So when it comes to bringing in leads and when it comes to actually seeing if those leads are qualified, we run into a bottleneck. You might find yourself spending a lot of hours manually finding prospects or spending a lot of time on leads that aren't actually qualified. I'll give you an example. I went to speak at a penthouse mastermind this weekend. Ideally, it was going to give me 50 leads, which is why I said yes. So I took the time. I drove to where the mastermind was. It was a 2-day mastermind, which means I gave up 2 days of my weekend to be there, only to find walking in the room that the leads that were there weren't exactly qualified leads, meaning I probably didn't see more than a handful of people in that room that actually would have been ready for what I had to offer. And how many of you have had that trouble? You've gone to networking meetings, you've gone to something where you've spoken, you put out a lead magnet or something like that, only to bring in a bunch of people where you're like, these actually aren't my leads at all. And so a lot of us have trouble in that first component of lead generation. How do we bring in people in a way where we're not spending tons and tons of hours? And how do we bring in people that we know are completely qualified? Okay. How many of you type lead in the chat if you've had issues, or you've seen that there is a little bit of clogging around your business when it comes to bringing in qualified leads. Either you're spending too much time or you're not spending any time at all, which means you don't have leads, or that the leads that you're actually bringing are leads that maybe aren't people that you want to work with. Okay. The second thing is sales process. Okay. So a lot of people run into a bottleneck when it comes time to actually go through the sales cycle. Okay. Your sales cycle is either too long, you're not strong at follow-ups. So you have those qualified leads, but you're not able to follow up. Or when it comes to making a proposal, those proposals are taking too long to create. So sales process, one, it takes too long to go through your sales process. Maybe you take them through 3 or 5 free lead magnets before they even get on a sales conversation. Too much time, right? Or you get a bunch of leads and then you're like, man, I never followed up with those leads. I had 10 people that were on the podcast that I was on saying that they wanted more info, and whoops, that podcast was like 2 weeks ago and I actually never really followed up with them in a timely manner. Or last, and I've felt this pain point before, they say, yeah, that sounds great. Why don't you send me over a proposal of what it looks like to work with you? And you just take too long to create that proposal, right? Instead of being able to do a 24-hour or 48-hour turnaround, now you're thinking like, okay, it's been 3, 4, 5, 6 days since I've had the sales conversation, which we know then that lead starts to cool off. Okay, so a lot of us have those components around the sales process. Content creation. Now, knowing that you're here in Gen AI University, I can imagine that many of you have felt the pain point of being bottlenecked around content creation and marketing. You know that you need consistent content to stay visible, but creating that content is either time consuming or you're distributing it in a way that's inconsistent. And I know that many of us are here part of Gen AI University because of this exact problem, right? Like, how do we leverage AI to create content? And the second part of that is, how do you make sure that the content that you're creating is actually getting distributed? And I'd love to see right now in the chat box, how often are you posting content that markets what you do or your business? Type in the chat, how many days a week are you posting content to either market yourself or market your services? 1 day a week, 2 or 3, consistently. Darby's the master, 3 to 5. That's why we're all here to learn from him, right? Because Darby is consistently 3 to 5 times a week posting things. And I know, Darby, you've put a lot of focus into building out that component of how to unbottleneck that part of your business. What about everybody else? Bruce, I'm not consistent at all. That's your problem. Okay. Who else? Consistently, how much are you posting on your channels? Your content, your wisdom. 5 times a week for clients. I love that, Glenn. Often another problem. We show up for our clients and we don't do the same thing for ourselves. George, none at all. Okay. Which is amazing because we're all here as AI integrators, right? So we all know that we can create AI really quickly, but that consistent piece is where we're getting bottlenecked. Super, super common. Client management and follow-up, right? So now the fourth bottleneck that we often see in the business is that we are getting clients, but onboarding those clients is still something that's a manual process. Communicating with clients is something that we're not super effective at. And instead of being like proactive of let me make sure that they've got a great customer journey once they enter our business ecosystem, we're now being reactive. Like, shoot, I didn't get them that link. Oops, I forgot to get that email out. Oh my gosh, I told them that I would connect them with so-and-so and I never did. I work inside a lot of bigger businesses, and I can't tell you how common this client management piece is. And I feel like it's something that's a little shameful to some of us entrepreneurs when we obviously all have the intention to give amazing customer service and really give them the best scenario possible. But I see it all the time. I'll see the CEO or the founder of a business bring in a client, and then after that, it all unravels. Nobody reaches out to the client, doesn't have the login, client doesn't know how to access the Zoom calls, client never got a welcome message, right? And it's a really big issue. And it really ruins our business ecosystem because ultimately we want happy clients because happy clients send us referrals, right? So those are 4 common bottlenecks. So out of the 4 that you see on the screen here, lead generation, sales process, content creation, and client management, which one of these resonates most for where you're at with your business? Content creation, thank you, Bruce. Lead generation, Glenn, sales process. Okay. What else are you guys looking at, Leandra? Okay, aligned lead generation. So you're probably getting leads, but whether or not they're qualified or aligned with what you help people with is probably questionable. Okay. What else? Where else are we seeing some of the challenges? Client management and follow-up. Okay. Yeah. So we all have these components in our business where we are like, yes, that is the exact place where I know that I'm getting stuck. And I'm going to stop sharing for a second because I want to recognize that where you probably can identify one place where you're getting stuck, you also may have a couple other places where you're like, I could be getting stuck in this place too. Because identifying the critical bottleneck is really the first step towards breaking it. And sometimes when we're looking at that critical bottleneck, we actually are also recognizing that maybe there's more than one, right? Maybe there's more than one bottleneck. And that's really what we want to take a look at. Is there more bottleneck? And most importantly, which of these is maybe costing us a lot of revenue? So I'm going to share with you a 4-step process to eliminate the business bottleneck. So what are the things that we can do to actually get rid of these components? One, we need to diagnose, right? On the previous slide, we did a very brief diagnostic of where are our bottlenecks. I gave you some of the most common 4. You told me this is where I'm seeing it happening, right? And a lot of times we try to fix the symptoms and not actually the root cause. So as I said on one of the previous screens, when we start getting into this bottleneck, we start looking for solutions. But very often what we're trying to solve is the symptom of what's happening when we're bottlenecked. For example, not bringing in enough revenue. We're not actually in the weeds of our business where we're looking at what that root cause is. Okay. So the first thing you want to do is map your customer journey. And many of you have been on one of my workshops where we look at that customer journey and we literally break down what are all the things that we have inside of our system, bring our client in from awareness all the way through being a referral, right? And I talk about the customer journey as something that's more of a flywheel and not as a funnel. Because when we look at the funnels in our business, a funnel has a clear exit point, a flywheel doesn't. So first, take a look at your customer journey. What happens from the point of when somebody initially says, oh, I've found a new person today on LinkedIn, and that person's name is Glenn Thompson. So from that initial of like, they just learned who you are all the way through, what happens when they decide to work with you? What are they doing when they're working with you? What are the deliverables? And then what happens after your time with them is complete? Where do they go once those deliverables have been met? Is there a next level for them to take? Is there a way for them to bring you more customers? Like, where is that entire customer journey? And where do things slow down? Okay. And then you want to start also tracking your time. So I use a tool called Toggle, Togl. It's a free tool. There's a lot of time trackers out there, but I start to track in a week, what do I spend my time doing? Am I spending 2 hours a day in content creation? Am I spending 5 hours a day in lead generation? Am I spending 3 hours a week in follow-up? How many hours am I spending in onboarding, right? Start tracking your time, because your time is going to also tell you where things are bottleneck. For example, if you're spending 30 hours a week on content creation and 0 hours a week on posting, or 1 hour a week on posting one week and 5 hours a week on posting the next, that's where your bottleneck is, right? You're spending way too much time on content creation, not enough time on actually posting. Or maybe you're spending a lot of time on lead generation, but not a lot of time on following up. So time can also tell you where you're bottlenecking, where are you spending too much time. You also want to do what I call follow the friction. How many of you have something that you know you have to do in your business to keep your business running, but if you are going to be honest, you don't like to do it? You have complete resistance around it, and therefore it's something that you put off. How many of you have one thing in your business where you're just like, I don't love doing it, and so I put it off? Right? You have to really notice what you're noticing. Darby and I have had so many conversations around like that concept of content creation. Like back in the earlier days of AI, right? Darby, we used to talk about, we love to record videos, but the fact that we know that we have to like actually do something with those videos and repurpose it is not something that we loved back in the day. And so that would actually keep us from doing videos, because it would be this looming gray cloud of, gosh, man, once I do the video, now I'm going to actually have to edit it and repurpose it. And that was not a fun part. So that was a bottleneck, right? So anytime we see friction is really an indicator of where we tend to bottleneck, because anytime we procrastinate or put something off, that automatically causes a bottleneck in our business. Okay. And then ask yourself things like, where do leads drop off? So along that customer journey, where do you tend to lose leads, or where do those leads tend to cool off? What tasks are you avoiding or delaying? What are the things that you put off, okay, that you don't love to do? What are some things that you're doing that take a lot of manual effort, right? A lot of manual effort. I have a client right now who likes to do all of the new client onboarding herself, okay? And I want you to see this bottleneck. She's on fire. She has a new program. She's bringing people into her program. But the first step of that client onboarding is that they need to book a call with her, which means she's bottlenecking herself. If she wants to bring in 15 new clients a week, in reality, she has to find room in her calendar to do 15 onboarding calls. And if she's doing 15 onboarding calls, we have to question, does she then have time to bring in new clients? So we get into this like catch-22 circle of, if I'm doing things manually, there's only so much that we can do. We all hit a ceiling when we've got a lot of things in our place that's manual. And then what activities are you doing that aren't actually scaling your business growth? I was just challenged this morning on a call that I had because I have a really heavy travel schedule. And I was talking about how robust my travel schedule was. And the person said to me, I'm going to challenge you. How many of those things on your travel schedule are actually going to help you grow your business? And I was like, oh, maybe half, right? Like maybe half. So are you doing things that actually aren't leading to dollars or leading to new clients? And all of these things are things that bottleneck our business. Okay. When we properly diagnose our bottlenecks, then we start to see the solutions. Okay. What happens when we don't see the clarity in this is that we then turn to other things like, what's Darby doing? What's Bruce doing? What's Glenn doing in his business? And we start to see what other fellow entrepreneurs are doing. And we start to think that their solution is going to be the best solution for us. But in reality, it may not be our bottleneck, right? It may not be our bottleneck. So we want to have that stage of where you're diagnosing so that you can actually see the bottleneck. When I shared with my client that it was all about this follow-up piece, right? She was bringing in clients in leads, but because she was demanding that she puts clients on her schedule and she does the onboarding call, she wasn't doing any of her follow-up. And so when I was like, where is your business bottleneck? She's, I just think it has to do around creating content. I'm not getting enough content out there, when actually that wasn't the issue at all. So you want to go dive into the surface and actually look at those root causes so that you can find some clarity. And then you want to go from there and think about, okay, what do I have that can help me with that area, right? With that limitation. Yeah, Bruce, like thinking like a CEO. And a lot of times it's challenging for those of us that are solopreneurs or maybe have a couple people on our team. When you're filling a lot of different roles, it's hard to get out of that like worker mentality and actually be like, how does a CEO actually work? The truth is, a CEO should be working the least. But when we're in the weeds, it's hard for us to really even see where the bottlenecks are. Then we want to measure. This step comes from Todd Herman. I don't know how many of you Todd Herman, but Todd Herman is the author of a book called The Alter Ego. And he talks about how when we are in the weeds of our business, we actually start taking on different roles, but we all have this alter ego of who we want to become. When we think about the dream version of our business, that role of CEO, we have our alter ego of what we want to look like, but most of us don't look like that because we're in the weeds. And he actually created a system called the 90-day year. And this step is adopted from the 90-day year. So the second thing that you want to do is you want to measure your impact. Okay. Where are we getting bottlenecked and how much is it costing us? Does content creation really cost us money? The answer could be no if you don't get your leads through social media or like omni-channel presence. If you get all of your leads from in-person events or face-to-face, content creation may not have a giant revenue impact. But if you are, for example, if you're getting all your leads from social media or LinkedIn and you're not putting in any type of time on content creation or posting distribution, then that could be a big impact. And what the 90-day year talks about is it talks about assigning dollar amounts to all of the activities that you do. So for example, if you could have a sales call, will that sales call bring in $5,000, $7,500, $10,000? If you post on LinkedIn, will that LinkedIn bring you $5,000, $7,500, $10,000? And if the answer is no, it's going to give me maybe a $7 purchase, then are you bottlenecking yourself by focusing on content creation? Okay. So hours spent times your hourly value. We want to look at the leads lost and the average customer value. If my average client pays me $500 and I let 10 possible clients go down the drain every week because I don't have a follow-up system, now I'm losing $5,000 a week, right? The maximum clients possible with your current process. This goes back to the client that I shared. That client is bringing in her own clients at $25,000 a year. But she can only bring in so many clients because she's wanting to do all of the onboarding calls. If she was able to scale those onboarding calls and bring in 3 times as many, how many more $25,000 clients could she build in? And most importantly, what would your revenue look like if that bottleneck was removed? So if you removed these things from your business, what could your revenue actually look like? What could your business actually look like? Now we have to select, right? So once we know where our bottlenecks are, we can start to decide how can AI help us leverage those components in our business. And again, you're here at the Scale with AI Summit. So it's no secret that you're looking for ways to scale your business and tools to use to help accelerate the things that you're doing inside of your business. But the key is matching the tool to the specific bottleneck. Okay. Do you need a tool for lead generation and lead qualification? Do you need a tool to help you with your sales process? Do you need a tool to help you with content creation or marketing? Do you need a tool for client management? Okay. Once we realize what we actually need tools for, then it's easier for us to match that tool that's going to help us unbottleneck our business. And I'm going to stop sharing again because I want to just look at you and be able to say this. We are in a slippery slope when we are AI implementers and integrators, and we are being inundated with a bunch of tools. Bruce, I know you and I have had this conversation around when we find a new tool, it's okay, maybe I didn't generate any revenue this week because I dove in and I was playing around with this new AI tool. I always love to blame Darby for sharing all his great tools, because then I'm like, thanks, Darby. I spent 16 hours trying to use pickaxe and I actually didn't bring in any revenue, right? So we're on a slippery slope when we're in a community surrounded by amazing people who are doing great things with AI. And for us, if we don't know where we're actually bottlenecking, then we don't know what tool we actually should be spending time on. How many of you have spent time, like hours, learning an AI tool only to find out, I don't really know if that actually is going to be a needle mover in my business? I've spent hours in things like Descript. And I have to be honest that I don't know that having an up-leveled video of myself really is going to be a game changer in who I bring in. But maybe content creation would be, right? Or maybe having some kind of lead generation AI bot that follows up with my leads might be. Yeah, Cursor. Oh, George, Cursor. Don't even get me started with that. I spent a lot of time on Scrivener at some point, and I was like playing with Scrivener, and I was like, planning on writing a book. Like, why am I actually playing with Scrivener? And so we get a lot of that shiny object system syndrome as AI integrators. And that's where this piece is really important, is this component around where are you bottlenecked so that you actually can find the right tools to unbottleneck that. Yeah, is it an investment in the future or a wasted expense? And the challenge with that, Bruce, is if we don't know where we actually need the tool, then it potentially does become a wasted expense. We should be able to see an AI tool and automatically know this isn't going to be a wasted expense because that's not an area of my business right now that's being bogged down. Like, I just saw a great tool about podcasting, and trust me, like the force was strong with that one. And I had to be like, Kelley, it's a wasted expense. You don't have a podcast. Like, you've been talking about a podcast, but you don't actually have one. So let's just put that tool down. Okay. But we don't know that if we haven't gone through that like diagnostic phase of even knowing where our business needs help. And then stage 4 is all about implementing. Okay. So once you have that bottleneck and once you have the right tool, now you have to implement it. Okay. Start with one tool and don't try to like completely AI your entire business. Just start with that one piece. There's a lot of tools out there that have a lot of amazing capable. I'll take Descript. There's so many cool things that you can do with Descript, but don't try to completely Descript your videos. Just start with whatever is bottlenecking you. I just need to clean up the sound and I need to be able to clip the beginning and the end of my videos. And I know I can do all these cool things with the Underlord and change my background and make it look like I'm looking at the camera and but like if you don't need to do that, don't start there. Document your process. Okay. You can't automate anything that you don't have an SOP for. So start tracking what you're doing. Maybe it's something as simple as talking through with a Loom video. Here's what I'm doing from A to Z. Okay. Design a workflow. Darby is amazing at workflows, putting a bunch of AI flows together and stacking them on top of one another so that you have an AI accelerated system. As with AI, nothing is perfect. So you have to test and refine. And when you build out a system all at once, it's hard to test at each phase. That's why you start little by little. You start one workflow, make sure that it's getting you the results that you want, and then you go on and you build the next. And then when you have a team, then you can start to train them. You've got the SOPs in place. You've got an AI system that works. It's been tested and refined, and now it's scalable, and you can go and you can deliver it to whoever you bring on as you build your company. Okay. Les Brown is one of my clients, and we've done a lot around unbottlenecking his business. I don't know how many of Les Brown, but he's been around for years. He's an amazing motivational speaker. And when we pulled up the hood to his business, there was everything he was doing was manual, everything. And I get these leads and I don't know how to convert them. And I meet all these people at events and then I like don't ever follow up with them. And I don't even get anything on social media. And so like his complete system was bottlenecked. And this poor man has been hiring experts for years. He's gone from expert to expert. And I pay people money and nobody can help me. And I'm like, it's because you don't even know where your own business has bottlenecks. He was looking for a surface solution, didn't even know what was going on inside the hood of his car. He just kept trying to buy a different car instead of just being like, oh, if I just change the oil and I just had a new whatever, then maybe my business would run more smoothly. Okay. Everybody has this bottleneck problem, even people who have been around for years. So your plan is to find out where you're bottlenecking. I have a bottleneck assessment tool that I want to gift to you today. And then after that, start looking at where can you start to plan for that bottlenecked areas. What AI tools are right for me? How can I deploy those AI tools? Who are the people in the community or in the space that maybe know how to leverage these tools? And that's when you're really going to see your business grow. Okay. So with that, I would love to give you access to my AI community. Many of you know that I run the Women Who AI community. We actually have an upcoming summit that's happening on April 10th. You do not have to be female to join. It is just a community that spotlights females that are doing amazing things. And inside that AI community, I have a couple of these bottleneck AI assistants for you. I have one that's going to assess your business and give you some ideas around where your business might be bottlenecked. And then there is also a bottleneck assistant who, now that you've identified places, will help give you an implementation plan of where potentially where you can start and really start to utilize AI to unbottleneck some of those things. In the space of AI tools, of AI assistants, of AI agents, there's no reason why we should be manually doing anything and no reason why we should feel bottlenecked. So I'm going to drop the link to my community. I think some of you are already in there. And actually, let me just show you. I'll share my screen. When you get into the community, you're going to find a tab that says AI tools. And inside that tool, you'll be able to play with my bottleneck assessor, who will help you figure out where you're bottlenecking. And it will also lead you to a tool that Darby actually helped me work on, where it will give you an implementation plan for how you can unbottleneck your business. So let me just drop that link for you. I hope to see you all on the inside. I know that a lot of you have a lot of things to contribute to that community as well. And like I said, if you are not a female, don't be shy. Come on in, because we would love to see you anyways. So you will just have to create a user account to get into that. But I hope to see you all on the inside. And Darby, I'll give you that link too, so in case it needs to go somewhere else other than the chat.
Yep, we'll add that link to the directory so everyone can join who's inside the community and has access to the directory. And of course, we've got your upcoming summit in April, but you host these types of events on a regular basis, and it's part of the benefit of being in a community that's going to provide additional support. Obviously, a way for you to provide these resources for people who are looking to access them, and it's a way that's not requiring you to log on Facebook or another social media account. Everything's going to be bucketed inside of this container that you've got set up, and just give a lot more access to the kind of cool stuff that you're building, Kelley. So I would encourage everybody here to head on over to womanwhoai.com to learn more about the upcoming summits and events, and also check that link for joining the community to tap into these resources and more.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Kelley.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
there's so much opportunity to remove ourselves out of our businesses and play areas that maybe we're forced bottlenecks and required at one point to get to where we're at now as entrepreneurs and business owners. But of course, what got us here isn't necessarily going to get us there to where we want to go. And removing ourselves from these situations that may be slowing us down, adding unnecessary friction, whether it's AI or delegating to a human to help us out with that. It's helpful to get a different perspective and a fresh perspective. And one where now you can use tools that people can tap into Kelley's mind, Kelley's framework, Kelley's approach, but not necessarily adding another bottleneck to your business. And you can't do one-on-one coaching for everybody all at the same time. But with AI resources like this, you can. So thank you so much for putting that together, Kelley. And yeah, any other questions for those here with us live? We've got a few minutes before we wrap up this session of the summit. See a lot of thanks and thank yous. Love to hear if there's any ahas or insights, golden nuggets or takeaways that you guys got from today's session. I saw a few comments here. I'll go back and check and make sure we don't miss anything. See Bruce's comment about this discussion is really teaching us to think like the CEO of our business instead of the worker. Much appreciated, says Leandra. Thanks, Glenn, Tanya. Thank you, Yolanda. Thank you, George. Thank you. Awesome
Yeah,
stuff.
Bruce had a great comment. Maybe we make a list of interesting new tools we hear about and organize them based on how they can be used. I would love that. Like essentially, if we look at the four areas, the four most common areas, it's a great idea, Bruce, to start putting together tools that people are using in those areas to allow people to explore, because I know that sometimes that's one of the bottlenecks. You Google something like content video AI video editor, and now like the sun's going down and it's like time for bed. So that certainly can be a component. And that's what's so great about these communities, is being able to leverage and say, hey, who can save us some time in doing the research and just provide some tried and true AI tools that are working for other people. So I love that. I think that's a great idea. Yeah, that certainly is.
Glenn says, love tying activity to revenue to avoid the shiny objects. Reminds me of the last summit's keynote session with the founders of Howdy, who are again one of our platinum sponsors for this event, and they hire some of the top talent in Latin America to place them with U.S. based companies, and their approach for hiring humans was similar to how you would hire like a new AI system to work with. You need to define the role of what you're using it for. You need to identify where it fits in your workflow, and Jacqueline said something along the lines of like spending like the time like you would train an actual human employee to training yourself or your team how to actually use these tools and create processes, create documentation around the tools. And thankfully, there's AI tools that can help us even creating that documentation. But the important thing is to, if you're going to commit to a tool, obviously researching it and then being willing to go deep and stick with that tool and really learning and integrating it, because a lot of these tools now can handle so much of the of so much inside of our processes that you might not need five tools to do one job. There may be a solution for one tool that has the capabilities of handling all five things for you, and it may be something that people have already tested out. And so there's probably people that you know inside of our community or inside of your own network that have experimented with tools and can give you some real direct feedback on whether or not that tool has been useful or not, and save you some time from going down a rabbit hole that has no end. She said, oh, the sun's going down. Nothing got done today because I found these five new AI tools. You're on mute, Kelley, but I think, yeah, we're just making sure we got the right link for everybody here.
Yep. Let me take a look. I saw that.
And I think the tools that we decide to use inside of our business, again, are only really as useful in how they apply to the job that's needing to get done, and what actually needs to happen. Like some tools are great for certain uses and then are completely unnecessary for others. Sometimes you don't need to make a website when you could have just sent somebody an email with a Stripe link. And so what forms of using AI tools are actually procrastination from doing what we know needs to already get done. And I'd be willing to bet that you already know what needs to get done. And using these unbottlenecking assistants can help with that perspective of maybe showing you something that you already know that's going on in your business that you might have just needed to shine a spotlight on to really bring it front and center, and then go do the work to get that job done, or go find the right AI agent or team of AI agents to help with getting the job done, or what. And I know you're exploring a few tools right now, Kelley. We just say in the landscape of AI tools and agentive AI tools, I've completely stopped trying to keep up with all the new AI agent tools that
Yeah.
are hitting the scene. But a few tools that I have been on my radar and the radar of our community for a while have been Relevance AI and MindPal AI. This isn't an affiliated pitch for either one of these products. The rate at which these two particular tools are accelerating for being able to help you with creating agentic workflows, similar to tools that we mentioned in previous sessions here, like Gumloop. And I see the trend going towards these tools being less and less of a requirement for you to be technically savvy, and more pre-built workflows that you can easily modify. And I think that it's going to get easier and easier for us to do it, but it's still going to be so critical for us as the visionary or the integrator that is operating with these tools to know where we want to go in the first place, and then,
Mhm.
pick and run with the right tool. Because MindPal just came out with some really big updates that I think a lot of people thought was going to be another few months even, and now. And so, the tools that are the front runner of this, find the ones that are popular and that are getting people good results, and do your due diligence and research. But then when it's time to hit the ground running, make sure that you're spending the time to properly implement them and not half-baked solutions for yourself.
Yeah, and I think there's two things to that. So the AI tool that they're going to get access to, I actually built with MindPal. I know, Darby, you and I were going back, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to jump in and see it. And MindPal, so you guys be the judge on how good the AI tool is it. But MindPal is the one that I've decided to use just for that piece, like the idea that you can actually stack. I could have a business blueprint bot and stack all of these, the assessor, the plan, right? Like I can stack all of them inside one. So that was an interesting component. The other thing that is interesting, and I don't know Pickaxe too well, but it has an AI prompt enhancer. And I feel like that's really powerful, right? So when you
Hmm.
start with using Claude to build your prompt, and then you go in, I also like how it will say, what would an example be of an output? And I feel like maybe that helps streamline a little bit more of that. Does the output look like I want it to? I know in some of the earlier AI tools, like the content would be okay, but the format of how it gave the content was really messy. So like that you can show it, this is what I want it to look like. Um, but the other thing that came to mind while you were talking is just that concept of like assigning dollars to your tasks. Because here's the thing, and I think building an AI tool is a perfect example. We all want to have an AI tool, right? Like we all want to be like, I have this AI thing that you guys can go in and use. But if you start assigning dollars to the things that you're doing, I think some of us might realize having an AI tool is maybe only like $1 sign, unless there's strategy around how that tool could lead me to a $3 sign or a $4 sign. And really early on, even before AI, when I started looking at this concept of assigning dollars to the tasks you're doing, I remember having a day where I spent, I don't know, 6 hours making like Canva graphics. And Todd was like, how much money are those Canva graphics going to bring you? And I was like, are they directly linked to an offer? And I was like, no, they're really just giving me visibility. So he's okay, that's like $1 sign, right? They're not going to lead people to book a call. They're not selling your program. So he basically was like, you made $6 today because I spent 6 hours on the $1 activity. And that was the
Hmm.
moment where I was like, ouch. Like, how often do we do that? How often do we spend time in our business? Like, he was like, how could you have spent 6 hours on $1,000 task? Could I have made $6,000 in those 6 hours instead of $6 because I was stuck in an activity that wasn't directly related to revenue? So I think when we're even looking at tools, I'm in that learning curve of tools, asking ourselves, what is the dollar value that this tool is going to bring my business, and being able to let go and saying, even though it's a nice, shiny object tool, if it's not going to lead to thousands of dollars in my business, is this really where I should be spending my time? And I think in a time, like you said, where there's like more and more AI tools that are shiny objects popping up, we have to be really smart and strategic around the ones we're spending time with, because that becomes part of the bottleneck in itself.
Yeah, and it's great, I think, as the person that has the vision to understand what the tools are capable of, but also when's the time to just delegate something to someone else to go and do the thing with those tools, which is one thing I love about the power of what these tools can enable one competent person as opposed to like five incompetent people with the same tools are not going to be anywhere near as effective with how they're going to be able to create that tool versus one person that could literally 10 to 50x what they are able to produce because they're able to leverage these tools at a much more higher impact rate. And again, even that stuff might not be the stuff that you need to be spending your time on, especially, and again, depending on your business and where you enjoy spending your time and what's actually generating revenue for your business. If you're in the business of or being a thought leader for your business, if you're a founder that's the face of your brand and people are really doing business with you, like one of the higher leverage things that you can spend your time on is creating video content, is going on podcasts, is developing strategic partnerships. And like while creating graphics in Canva, like can help with that type of stuff, even just understanding how much time it actually takes you to maybe whip up a YouTube thumbnail versus can someone else's hourly rate that maybe they charge 10, 15, 20, $30 for a thumbnail. Like you can
Mm-hmm.
still weigh what that looks like when you think of, oh, every time I create a YouTube video, if that's leading back to X amount of new subscribers or X amount of new calls being made or any number of other ways that you're tracking what success would look like. There's a lot of ways that you can get yourself out of that post-production bottleneck. But there still needs to be somebody managing that process. And again, identifying who that person's going to be that's going to help with taking and lifting, doing the lifting with these tools is a really important role to take into consideration here. And we're going to cover more on that on our future session with the Howdy founders who are coming back on Thursday with a live session here on the 20th. So if you guys can join us, that's going to be great. But they're going to give us some ideas of ways that you can and ways that they're also seeing small businesses hire these specific roles that each of the role is their own mini CEO. Bruce said, tying it back, like this thought process that you're doing can enable somebody who may have never even considered themselves to be a CEO, but give them that level of autonomy and agency to be able to work with these tools. Like so much can happen. And I think entire businesses are going to continue to be built with one, two, or three people on a team that are operating these different AI tools effectively. But again, where you're spending your time, Kelly, is going to be different than where your like chief of staff, executive director, assistant is going to be spending their time. And we're going to continue to see how that stuff changes. But just important to make sure that you're mapping that out and know exactly where you're heading with this type of stuff to begin with. All right, y'all. That said, thank you so much, Kelly, for your
Thank you.
session here on the Scale with AI Summit 2025.